those who were not in Genoa, others that weren't born at the time. We should all be together. In this autumn, on the 24th of September, there's going to be a global strike, and on the 1st and the 2nd of October, we'll meet in Milan from all over the world to have a saying in front of the pre-COP30 summit. So it will be a responsibility that we all have. We'll have to fill the squares and show that a different world is possible. We used to say that in the past, and we keep saying it, that another word is possible, it's necessary. We have to show we believe in that. It's the only chance we have to overcome the crisis. We can't think of overcoming this crisis with the ways and the means that we had in the past, which were the ones that caused the crisis. We have to think in terms of a new system. A capitalist system based on fossil fuel resulted in this catastrophe. We might adjust it, but it won't work. So we have to sort of uproot the old system and sow new seeds that should grow as quickly as possible. That's the hashtag of the forthcoming strike. Just change the system. It's important to understand the signals sent by the pandemic. It showed we're not ready for a series of events and zoonoses. That is also part of the loss of biodiversity. Useless to say that health crisis and climatic crisis go hand in hand. No one, sorry, your time is almost up, Martina, I'm sorry. Can you conclude? I was saying that crises have not been assessed correctly, but the COVID crisis is something that we have perceived immediately. But for the climatic crisis, we have more time, but we've got to be prepared for that. We need no more lockdowns in red areas. We'll meet in the streets. Raffaella.
4 speakers last session, and then we will all meet shortly in the square. The future of alter globalization. There's a future, and hopefully in the upcoming months, so last year, we'll have an opportunity to meet in presence. So we'll first give the floor to Armando Negri, who will speak from Brazil. He is the coordinator of the Executive Committee of the Social and Health Forum. Global Health Forum.
Okay, we are back. Sorry.
Preserving diversity, different cultures. So preserving different identities and cultures. We need to address globalization while taking into account the different cultural backgrounds and cultural identities. So I just introduced the two first speakers, Armando.
Eccolo. Bueno, Armando, puede hablar. Gracias.
Sí, muchas gracias. Perdón ahí por el problema de conexión. Bueno,
Thank you. There's a problem with the connection. I'd like to thank in particular the comrades that share this vital event to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Genoa process. This has had a major impact on the struggle that was related to that. I am talking on behalf of the Forum, World Forum on Health and Social Security, a theme which was covered during the World Forum. I'd like to leave a message with you. This is an important day. It's a challenge for us. The challenge is to ensure that we make our ideas have a role in the world in a context such as that of the pandemic of COVID-19. We've seen how social security development have been affected by the pandemic. The pandemic, it's a crisis which is also nurtured by the profound crisis we've gone through in the last decade. The first step to restore the proper shape to life. There's a huge continent of human lives, a continent that has created a neoliberal hegemony in a way that we can sort of provide information. In our last meetings, we have discussed about these issues. We should know which are the actual size, which is the actual size of the crisis that we have to face up to, the conflict, the neoliberal capitalist conflict with democracy, attacking all the citizens' spaces of action. We've seen during the pandemic that the most fragile populations are excluded from any form of decision, so they struggle for survival with no guarantee of social, health, and environmental protection. This is a crisis of democracy. We want to sort of ensure that democracy can recognize conflict as an essential element of political action to ensure that we know who our enemies are. We want to sort of focus on the social crisis, the great constant inequality which has come about in the pathway of the capitalist, the neoliberal economy, with a permanent lack of responses to the social demands, threatening many populations around the world which have been excluded from the advantages of production. It is productivity that is at the basis of neoliberal globalization, social crisis in terms of inequalities, with a demand to redistribute the wealth in the field of production. But this should occur in such a way that there is social protection to mitigate the poverty created by the system, to try and ensure that social, cultural, environmental rights are guaranteed. We should sort of, in a way, create a situation where people feel that they have a right to a decent life. And in conclusion, there is a third dimension, which was mentioned here, is that of environmental crisis, which has strongly emerged. What does climatic and environmental justice in the various crises that we are confronted with as a forum? We have to create increasingly a series of debates which are politicized to create large public spaces, many alternatives against the current hegemony. That means that from the local to the world context, this would mean that we can assert the common good for the humankind. The concept of public goods, which takes into account a very strong protagonism that we are experiencing. Let's not forget what means border without losing sight of the national dimension. In Latin America, the process we read led to the election of Professor Castillo in Peru, or the Constituent Assembly in Chile. What's happening in Colombia are a clear sign of a process that many societies want a broader repoliticization of society, dealing with inequalities. We have to discuss the right to development that can produce environmental and social justice. It's urgent to repoliticize life with sort of comments on individual entrepreneurship, where every person can overcome the cultural barriers that stifle population. We have to move from the local dimension. Thank you. We have to reconsider the context, but we have to consider policies.
Thank you. And now I will give the floor. We're very happy to be with you. I will give the floor to Walden Bello.
I'm joining you from Manila in the Philippines, and I'm very happy for this reunion of both of us, as well as so many others, on the 20th anniversary of Genoa. This was the biggest
anti-globalization protest, but it is also noted for the fact that the Carabinieri created a riot that day. And many people still remember how the Italian police became such a savage force against us. Let me just say that the anti-globalization movement with Genoa, that was the peak of the anti-globalization movement. Unfortunately, September 11 happened in 2001. And this September 11 and the anti-terror campaign deflected the energies of the anti-globalization movement and took over basically the focus of world attention. Nevertheless, the anti-globalization movement, or the altered globalization movement, made the point, and this was made very clear, that our critique was very correct with the collapse of the global financial system in 2008. Out of that collapse, we saw the Occupy movement emerge, and many of us in the anti-globalization movement were very active in the Occupy movement that saw a number of different movements emerge in different parts of the world. However, this was also after 2008, a period when the right wing pirated our anti-globalization critique. And we saw how in so many countries, the critique of globalization was taken over by right-wing elements like, the
National Front in France, by Viktor Orban in Hungary, and by groups that became allied to Donald Trump in the United States. They took over the critique of globalization, even of neoliberalism sometimes. They said, yes, social welfare measures were needed,
but they put it in a racist context. Yes, social welfare measures, but only those with the right skin, with the right culture, with the right ethnicity. So it was put in this very regressive context. So let us not underestimate the fact that many of the themes that we had pushed were taken over by the right. And the reason for this was that so much of neoliberalism was connected, was represented by the Social Democrats. And many people identified the left with the Social Democrats, that had basically sold out to neoliberalism. So let me end by saying that what is our task? Our task at this point throughout the world is very much to confront the rising right wing that is such a threat to all, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in Asia and other places. We have to confront these right-wing movements, even as we confront neoliberalism. And it is very important that we reappropriate the anti-globalization critique and put it again into a powerful, progressive vision. Thank you very much, and long live Genoa. This was the great point for both of us. Let us make sure that we retain the spirit. Thank you very much from Manila.
Diamo insieme a tutti quelli che sono intervenuti, tutte e tutte
I'd
quelle
like
che
to
sono
thank all those who have taken the floor and spoke in this assembly. As we finish this meeting, we'll keep them with us and take them to Piazza Limonda. We have the last two speakers, Edgardo. Hi, Edgardo. He's from Venezuela. He's a sociologist, he's a writer and an artist. He's an activist who is a point of reference for the critical thinking of Latin America. He's co-founder of the Global Dialogue. He works for one of the leading research center against the system. It's an important figure for all of us. Edgardo. Thank you, Raffaella. I'd like to start by thanking you all for the invitation to participate to this event, which celebrates Genoa and the mobilization there. As we understood from the previous speakers, today more than ever in the history of humankind, we're living in a globalized world, and we must recognize that we are witnessing the rising inequality. We can't think about the problems which have to be faced in other continents as if there were something removed very far away from us. In this crisis of civilization that we are experiencing, we must be aware that this is related to the continuity of life in those countries. So based on the current situation, we see that there is a trend which is very dangerous we see that there is environmental devastation, which has already been mentioned, as we have seen what happened in North America and the Amazon and other parts of the world where floods are catastrophic, as we've seen recently in Germany. And as a result of that, we could say that what is being considered as a catastrophic situation to apocalypse, well, that a few years ago would sort of made us understand that we are getting into a situation which would become very complicated. Now, the second aspect we should consider is the pandemic, COVID-19. We must recognize that quite apart from differences in the various situations in different countries, we all live in one world. Not only do we have to find solutions, but we must sort of come to conclusions which are applicable to everyone. Thirdly, the radical left, xenophobic, fascist movements, sort of dangerous environmentalism, sort of makes it very difficult to do away with these trends. It's a question of life and death. And this brings us to a situation where we have to discuss, reflect on the deaths caused by the pandemic, as we could not sort of master the situation. But the experience we've had is a shared experience, which was the result of this catastrophe, which affected the majority of the population on Earth, that must be aware that we are at the edge of a cliff. It's a world where the minority sort of only concerned itself with its own interest, while the rest of the world is affected by what happens. Governments and the big corporations do not realize how serious is the crisis that we are confronted with. Our alter globalization movement is called upon to take new responsibilities, despite the capability that we have today with respect to what we had 20 years ago. The movement enables us to sort of envisage how we can best develop our struggle. We have understood that it's important to recognize the diversities. We have to consider that there is sort of social problems which are getting worse and worse. We should therefore consider things in a perspective which should be the perspective and a universal perspective. So all this must be brought into account. Most important is the defense of water. We must act against militarism. These are the sort of the very core values for our Mother Earth, that we should be united in a single fight to protect life. This common experience, it's a lesson to be learned for the community to save the common good for the humankind. It's a political, cultural challenge if we want to sort of achieve the proper goals in our way and in sort of have some hope in this world. Thank you.
Thank you. Big hug. Thank you. And now we have the last presentation Moena Miranda from Brazil. She has been working very hard, both from the political, cultural, and organizational point of view. For the World Social Forum. She is now working for the Amazonic Ecclesial Organization for the to protect Amazonia and against the exploitation of the Amazonian forest. Today, we ask her to address the audience in making her closing remarks. She has always been a source of great inspiration and hope for all of us. And since we all really need hope, we are having hope again, a little bit. Morena, you have the floor.
Hoy es de hecho una gran emoción. He escuchado hablar de política.
Comrades, it's a great emotion for me to hear what you said. I heard you talk about politics, transformation. We have to talk about love, nostalgia, the fact that we are together. It's something, well, when I see Rafael and Edgardo, something happens within my heart. That we have not given up. We are at the edge of a chasm. But when we are again together, we are facing a world which is far more difficult than what we thought it was. When I see you, I see the strength of the young people. I see the strength of nature. Well, we can say that we are all in this world to fight together with the water, with the fire, with the animals. We're not just human beings. We're not just here to be engaged in politics. We have to create poetry and love. We are at the edge of a catastrophe. We're all scared. But we must be aware of the huge danger which is looming ahead. We shouldn't elude ourselves. Those who are at the beginning of their life are in a difficult situation. I live in a country which was the cradle of hope. You're here in Genoa, thousands of people, and we also have governments which are not with us, but life goes on. That's a difference. Life has taken up a transformative strength. Love is the only force that will enable us to face up to this devastation. The fact that we want more and more and to be greedy, it's no use. We know that we as human beings, the flowers, the oceans, the seas, well, Rafaela, to all of you, the strength of your life, strength, this special position that we should have in our life. I see and I experience that we are going through this transformation, not as we sort of felt we could. We must do more, we must love more, we must think in terms of different pathways and different routes. I want to tell to my friend Bello, thank you for your courage, for your hope. We're all white hair, we have all white hair, but we are here with Martina, with young people that are beginning their lives in this process of transformation, which will make it possible for us to live in a better world, in a more loving world. Thank you to you, to Genoa, and thank you to you all. We shall all be together, we shall hug ourselves, and this will happen very soon. Long live life, poetry, and
Grazie tantissimo, muy Guido. E ci vediamo presto.
Thank you. We shall meet again. Thank you to the four of you because you gave us hope and courage.
Vi portiamo con noi in piazza. Adesso
We'll take you to the streets. We'll start our demonstration.